I think the thing is that competitiveness really is commitment plus curiosity, right? Make a commitment to yourself that you are going make promises to yourself, hold yourself accountable. And then the curiosity part is when I get in this space, I'm gonna see how far, I'm curious to see how far I can take this. How far can I push myself? And then be ready to reward yourself as well.
Welcome to Limitless Minds, the podcast where curiosity meets greatness. Each week, co-host DJ Eidson and Harry Wilson sit down with some of the most exceptional individuals across sports, business, and beyond. From world-class athletes and peak performance coaches to visionary CEOs, entrepreneurs, and influential authors, they dive deep into the stories and strategies that drive extraordinary success. If you're ready to discover what it takes to be truly limitless and push beyond your own limits, you're in the right place.
On today's Limitless Minds podcast, we have Monica Livingston. Many of you have heard Monica before. She is a Limitless Minds coach. She's a room tilter. We've been working with her for some time. We wanted to bring her back and today talk about a different topic and go a little deeper. Monica is a former professional athlete, coach, business leader, sales guru. So we want to unpack a topic that is really relatable to all of us. Check it out. Let's go. All right. Welcome back to the Limitless Minds podcast. Today we have a familiar face, one of our, best and brightest Limitless Minds coaches, world class, as they say. And honestly, somebody that's been on the pod before, and you've been introduced a little bit, but we just had to have you back. You are just certainly one of the most popular guests last go around. People loved your fire, your humor, your perspective, et cetera. So we wanted to bring you back, but today we had something on our heart and mind that we really wanted to kind of dive into, something that we see a lot in leadership, in sales, obviously, certainly in sports, business, et cetera, is the idea of competitiveness. Now you've lived it, right? I mean, you've been a pro athlete, you've been a coach, you're a business leader, sales. And so we thought you'd be really the perfect person to help us kind of unpack this a little bit and really kind of, certainly talk about what it means. Right. And I think as a part of that, understand what it doesn't mean, you know what I mean?
That part.
And then also some tools and stuff to kind of figure out how to build that muscle the right way.
Right.
So I thought we'd dive into some of that stuff. But before we do, how you been? What you been up to?
Hey, I'm living the dream. Thanks, Harry.
Yeah.
DJ, what's going on? What's popping up? I am super happy to be back. Y'all are some of my favorite people on the planet. So this is just like us getting together.
Planet's pretty big.
I know, right?
It's like over 8 billion something. That's good.
And y'all are up there. So what I've been doing, y'all been keeping me busy, been spreading the good news. And living the dream and trying to stay, nooch. All the good things. But I love this topic because I think I've grown in this. Like if you had me on here 15 years ago and we were talking about competitiveness, I would have probably had singular definitions. And now it's I'd like to think I've grown and it's broadened some. So yeah, this is gonna be a ride.
Good stuff. Yeah, it's fun. It's great. And this is actually, and Harry didn't mention this, but this is our first podcast back in a couple months now.
I know.
Probably, what, 2.5 months. So
yeah.
we definitely
with you and I for sure. I think we popped in with Josh and Travis, et cetera. But I think this is good to be back on the mic together, and whatnot. So yeah, man, it's good timing.
No question. When you think about getting back to competitiveness, Monica, when you think about competitiveness, is there something that comes into mind? Right off the bat?
Yeah, it's I think the easy thing for people to say is competitiveness means you want to win. And I think for me now what's different is competitiveness is really like the actions of my desires, right? It is the doing part of my goals being achieved. It's the chase towards excellence. That's really what it is. And those goals that I set for myself, how to get there. And so it's that constant 1%, let's do better, let's go towards excellence. And that is what competitiveness means to me. And I think the simple definition is win, 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 but it's really deeper than that, now for me.
Yeah. What I found is, so I remember when I first kind of got into leadership and particularly sales leadership, you get a lot of resumes, right? Do a ton of interviews, and there's professional interviewers out there.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like that are just really good at the act of
Mhm.
interviewing.
They had plenty of
Um,
practice because ain't nobody gave them the job yet.
exactly, exactly. And
I
honestly, it's funny because you hire some folks, and you realize that was the best selling they did
That part.
was in the interview, right? But a lot of times, what comes up in a interview is like somebody gives you some version of, hey, Harry, or hey, Mon, I'm going to be the most competitive person you're going to interview in this process. Here's, and started beginning to kind of start challenging that
Mhm. Mhm.
in these interviews, and really kind of looked for people to, I'd stop and be like, okay, cool, bet, like you're competitive. Tell me about that. Like, what does that mean to you? How do you have, what's your philosophy around competitiveness?
Right.
And it was interesting because a lot of times people would have a long pause and not really have a strong answer, not really have any, had never really thought about it before.
Mhm.
Right. And then they give you something kind of status quo. And so what I found was that people confuse what competitiveness is,
Right.
right? And one of the areas they confuse what competitiveness is like, with maybe without realizing, is a lot of times they think they're competing
Yep.
when really they're comparing.
Yes.
And really they're comparing.
Yes.
Like, do you see that as well, that people confuse competitiveness with comparison?
All the time. And see, the difference is that comparison is what will hold you back, right? That's the
Hmm.
joy killer. And competition, being competitive, will fuel your growth. I see that as the difference. And a lot of times what people think is, the competitiveness, I'm gonna beat you, I'm gonna beat you, I'm gonna beat you. And they're not thinking about what real competition is looking within. See, comparing
Hmm.
is looking outside. Competition, real competitiveness is about me having a
Mm.
conversation with myself in the mirror to figure out what I need to do to move me towards this goal that I have for myself. I don't care what someone else is doing. Like, I really don't, because that's not my game, anymore. My game, I'm playing against me every single day. And I think that's
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
mistake people make. And you probably heard this in those interviews. I'm gonna be your top seller. I'm gonna sell more than anyone's ever sold. Okay, but more than you've ever sold, or more than everybody else? And how do you know that you're gonna sell more than everybody else? You don't even have this job yet. Okay, you don't know these
Right.
people, right? So you comparing yourself
Right.
against some people you don't even know. When you should be concentrating on yourself and looking within, and how can you get better? How can you grow? So I think that competitiveness and comparison people throws people off all the time. And the
Yeah.
competition
Yeah.
is really within.
DJ,
That's
you talk about this a lot, competitive comparison. Like, what's your take on that?
I
I'd be
mean,
curious.
I totally agree with the definition with competitiveness when you talk about looking within, inside, like what strengths, what skills, what attributes do I have? How do I maximize those God-given skills to get
Yep.
to my goal, to drive my performance? Whereas when you look outside, you mentioned it, comparison is the thief of joy. If
Right.
you don't want to have joy, you
Woo,
just keep constantly comparing yourself
that's
against
it.
others, and it's difficult, right? When you're when you see so many things come across your social media feed
Yep.
in society. How do you stop from comparing against others? But that's external, and when you find yourself, that quick litmus test, am I looking internal or external? That will tell you whether or not you're comparing or competing, which I
Yes.
think is
Hmm.
pretty
Ooh.
pretty awesome that you defined it like that.
Yeah,
How
DJ,
what
you bring up
mhm.
social media for a second, and I'm telling you, that is the biggest thing. People, that thing will throw you off. You will look on there and be like, I ain't doing nothing. I ain't nobody. Cause so and so
Yeah.
Right.
is on a boat
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
weekend, and you start looking and going, what's wrong with me? I thought I was the
That's
goat.
right.
Right. But who's posting their bad days?
Right.
I'll
Right.
wait.
Yeah.
Who's that? How consistent are people posting the difficult and the challenging parts of life? So it's easy now for me to look at that and go, okay, I want to celebrate what they're celebrating with them, but that doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm glad they have an opportunity to put it up. That's why it's called their social media. It's called their page, because they can do it what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
But I don't need to check a box and look at that and say, ooh, wait a minute, I haven't done that yet. What's wrong with me? And
Right.
so I'm literally trying to stay. That's one of the things I think people can do as a tool, is to really know what social media is for. If you want to log in and celebrate your friends and hit them with a like and a love, that's great, right? Because we should be celebrating each other. But if you're going on there and you find yourself now having some self doubt and poor self talk, maybe you need to slide that phone and leave it alone.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's and two things can be true. It's not a zero sum game. Like
Right.
Monica can be super successful So can Harry.
Yep.
DJ can have his. And
Yep.
that's the other thing, like celebrate when others are doing well, and don't automatically think, well, why am I not doing that?
Right.
And again,
Right.
that's a natural tendency. I'm not saying that but be aware that that's happening.
Yep.
And so it doesn't steal your joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, and I think that's actually a good segue to my next question, which is about like healthy versus unhealthy
Mm,
competition. And
mm,
now let's pull a comparison out of it. Let's try. Like, is there a like we call it in baseball the Mendoza line,
uh-huh.
right? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But like, is there kind of this equator, if you will, where like, hey, this your level of competitiveness has gotten to a point where it's unhealthy. Does that exist?
Yeah, I think it does. I think when you try to win at all cost, or you get rid of your character, you start to not care about other people. I think those are the things that you have to ask yourself every single day. The why am I doing this and who benefits?
Mm,
Those will bring you back on track. If you get into a mentality where you're like, I'm just competitive, I don't care what's happening, never mind. You started off being competitive because you wanted your team at work to succeed, or your team on the field, the pool, wherever it is that you compete. That's when you started off being competitive. I'm gonna show up as my best self. I'm gonna push other people. We know this in practice.
Uh-huh.
I've told sports teams this. If you show up lazy in practice, you are doing a disservice to your teammate, because here they are running thinking they're doing all great. Friday night lights happen and they smash, and they're like, what happened? I've been running over you all week. Well, I was taking it
right.
easy on you. So it's a setup for failure. But I think what we need to do is hold people accountable and have that talk with self as well. Am I doing this to help people around me win, or am I doing this just so I look good, just so I
Mm,
win? And I think when it gets unhealthy, when you say never mind to the reason you started, and you just go on and try to win or be better than someone, and even throw people under the bus, that becomes part of it, right? So that you look better. That's when you've turned a corner there, and it's hard to
Yeah.
get back there. So there are a lot of
yeah.
stuff you
Yeah.
need to do before you get there.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. It seems like, another piece to it is when you begin to be willing to kind of sacrifice like the ethics,
Yep.
and the
Yep.
integrity component
Yep.
is kind of what you're talking about a little bit.
Yep.
Like, I think that's where, it gets tough. In fact, I remember I interviewed for, I won't say the medical device company's name. I guess if somebody goes on my LinkedIn, they can figure it out. But there's a, really big medical device company I worked for that they have a process, an interview process where they bring in a third party.
Hmm.
I won't say who that third party is
Okay.
either, but they bring in a third party and they do this kind of external interview, and it's rapid fire. They ask you a ton of questions. They're largely yes or no questions, and
Okay.
then occasionally they'll throw in, okay, give me an example when, right? But then like there was this, I remember this time I was 26 years old, and there was a question that was asked that was not a yes or no question, and it
Hmm.
really wasn't asking for an example, but it asked like, hey, what's most important to you? Work, family, or ethics? And like in an interview like that, you're kind of, you start getting in your head like, oh, okay, what's the answer to looking at this
Right.
interview? So should I say work?
Right.
I mean, that's not really my answer, but of course it's my family. My family is most
Right.
important,
Right.
right? But the quote unquote right answer, and they'll tell you there's not a right or wrong answer.
Sure.
That's
That's what
BS.
they say.
The right answer to that question is
Yeah.
ethics, right? Because if your ethics aren't tight, right, then you're not going to have work. You're not going to have a job,
Not gonna have that
right?
family
And if you don't
relationship
have it,
either.
and if you don't have a job, you don't have that work. Like, it's hard to take care of your family, right?
Absolutely.
And so that right answer to that is ethics. It's
Yep.
always
Yep.
ethics, right? And I think sometimes competitiveness, if it, when it gets into this kind of toxic competitiveness, you start. That's the comparison
Yep.
seeps in. When the comparison seeps in, you start doing things that kind of contradict your ethical, whatever your
Right.
ethical structure is,
Right.
and then it all kind of waterfalls from there.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
that's where
Yeah.
I feel like it can become healthy when things get to the point where you're willing to sacrifice, some sort of ethical, component,
Yeah.
It's a
that in that
it's a really good question and example too, Harry. I mean, it's like your ethics, your values, they
Yep.
drive your work, they drive your
Absolutely.
family, they touch
Absolutely.
every aspect of your life. And yeah, because as you were telling that story, Harry, I'm thinking about top performers, that I've led, or times where I've been at the top of my game. Am I putting my values and purpose and in the forefront, or am I trying to lean way too far into my family? Am I trying to lean way too far into the work and the pay that comes along with that? And so I do think that it's a really great, and it's not necessarily the answer that you would think a business professional would look for, but it's
Right.
absolutely the answer that they're looking for.
Right. Right.
And you hope so.
You
Because
hope
if, like,
so. Yeah, that's
let's
right.
just say that that particular company wanted you to say work. That's a red flag.
That's
Yeah.
right.
You
That's not a
Yeah.
company
know what
that
I mean?
I
you
don't need to
feel
be
that
Right.
there.
you're, equally
Yeah.
yoked with, Harry.
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, that's
So,
Amen.
Monica, you mentioned at the top that, like, 15 years ago
Yeah.
or some period of time ago,
Yeah.
you probably would have defined competitiveness
Oh
differently,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
So talk to me about that. Like, so it sounds like you've had some sort of,
Yeah.
evolution in how you define this. Like, when was that? Like,
L-
what
Listen,
what was the
playing
creation of
days
that?
like in college basketball, and then playing, women's professional tackle football. I think competitiveness at that point in my life was about, I'll call them three S's: stats, starting, and scoring. Okay, that was it.
Mm,
That's what it meant, right? Am
mhm,
I on the field? Am I on the court? Am I starting? Am I on the court more than anybody else? And when I'm out here, am I scoring? And at the
mhm,
end of the day, if I'm doing those three things, that to me was the ultimate of competitiveness. And I'll tell you, after my injury in football, I had to redefine the win, which is why I've got our sweatshirt on today. For those of you that are watching, the WIN at Limitless, we say what's important now. And I had
mm,
that kind of thought process after the injury, where it wasn't going to be about starting. It certainly wasn't going to be about stats. And daggone short, the way my leg was, it wasn't nobody scoring nothing. Okay. Right. And so I had to redefine the win and shift that mindset into saying, how can I still be competitive? And so I took that competitive nature and that mindset into rehab. When they would say, you've got to do 10 reps, I'd do 11. And they say, okay, you got to do 10 reps. Then the next time I went, I'd do 12. Right? When they say there's no way that you'll be back even ever again, I said, okay, we're going to see how. But if I could get back, what would be the things necessary needed to do that? Well,
Mhm.
you'd have to, have another surgery. You'd have to show up for PT probably like 5 days a week. You'd have to ice you, all this laundry list of things. And they're like, yeah. And so I just think that you should concentrate on something else. And I said, give me the list. Let me see. So that
Mhm.
competition then became internal, me against my ankle, me against my leg, me against the doctors, me against the PT professionals, saying that I couldn't. And I said, well, tell me what you need me to do. What's this benchmark? And let me see if I can do that. And so now winning looks very different for me. Being competitive looks very different for me. Being competitive is making sure that when I show up and when we're doing our thing with Limitless Minds, that I'm bringing a competitive edge with me that is a vibe that we all bring, so that when we walk into a room, we're at the same, competitive vibe level, that we actually do what we call, we tilt that daggone room, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We
that's
like,
right.
it's offset it, baby. Let's go. And so
yeah,
it looks different now. It's not scoreboard. It is me against me, and knowing that if I do all the things, all the habits, right? Like show up early, stay late, ask good questions, throw that imposter syndrome, stiff arm when it needs to, that then I can keep this competitive vibe that other people then, catch and learn from, because that's what we do. Right.
Yeah.
So that's
mhm.
how it's way different for me. Than I look back, back then, and I thought, gosh, you were almost a jerk,
Mm.
like, you
Is
know,
Monica, you think that is it just because you were so driven, like, and focused on what you wanted to do? Like, where did that stem from?
I think some of it is also leadership. I can say this now, not pushing blame, but as a younger person playing, and now I'm 53 or 54. I don't know. I can't. I stopped counting after 50. I don't know how old I
There's no
am.
way
It
you
ain't
ain't.
that bad.
There's no way you up
I
there.
mean, I'm
Yeah,
trying to keep it together, but
yeah, yeah.
right. But back then, also leaders. So leadership has to say that, sometimes leaders say they value something, but their actions don't show that that's what they value.
Mm.
Mm,
So a leader will say, we care about you showing up and giving us your best effort. And I don't care about talent. I just want you here and open, and you can make mistakes, but then you witness how they actually respond. So I think some of the times when I was playing, we'd have a coach, and like Harry said earlier, I'm not going to mention a name at this particular time, but that said that they valued togetherness and teamwork. And if you have a question, ask it, and all those things. But every time you didn't know where you were supposed to be on the field, or you asked a question, it was treated as if you were othered. You were just like,
Yeah.
never mind. And so then
Mhm.
what you start to see is people aren't sharing information. We're no longer trying to get better as a unit. We are competing solely in with each other. We've got 5 or 6 running backs. Everybody's trying to be starting. Everyone's trying to be on the field. It used to be you could ask one, wait a minute, when we go through this gap, wait a minute, am I, taking this step? Do I take a bucket? Whatever. Now people are like this, yeah, I don't know. And they want you to
Mhm.
go up there and fail because what's coming down from leadership is if you fail, you're going to be on the bench, which means someone else rises. And
Mm.
so I think some of that really we need to put on leaders. If you say you value being innovative, asking questions, curiosity, then daggone it, your actions need to show that that's what you value. You need to reward that. It's okay to reward failure. If
Right.
somebody's giving you maximum effort, you better reward it because then they're in a space to be able to do that more. They feel seen, they feel heard, they feel valued. So I'm gonna
Hmm.
mess up in front of you because I know you got me instead of pushing me off to the side because I messed up.
Ramon,
Yeah.
let's talk about that for a second. The failure part, or
Yeah.
losing, right? If you're a true competitor,
Hmm.
right? Uh, how like what's the right way to handle losing,
Yeah.
or what's the best way to handle the failure?
Oof. Well, here's the thing. Failure happens because a series of events or mistakes have happened that you now define that as failure. I don't really like to use the word because I think anytime you mess up or fail, you should also be looking to learn something, right? And to think about what action can I align with what just happened to make the outcome different next time. Okay.
Right.
Mhm.
But I think the most important thing is to remember, and I think I said this last time, that mistakes are temporary, localized, and changeable. That's how you should be, dealing with how to bounce back. Temporary. Something happened. I fumbled the ball. It had a begin time and end time. Now I'm not talking about me because y'all know I ain't fumbled the ball. I'm talking about other people.
No, no,
I'm
no,
just
no,
putting
no,
that
no.
out there.
Hindsight,
It wasn't
hindsight,
your
hindsight.
mistake,
I'm
right?
just
Yeah.
putting
Right.
that.
It
I'm
was
just
somebody
telling
else's.
y'all.
I
I'm
feel
telling
you.
y'all a story about somebody else. Okay. Right.
Like if this were to happen,
If it
yeah,
was
exactly,
to have happened, then when
yeah,
you fumble the ball, it has a beginning and an end. Had the ball, fumbled it, somebody else has it now, that's the end. So it's temporary. It is localized, meaning it is part of that offensive series, right? If we're talking football, or if it's a meeting, we're talking corporate space. You went into a meeting, that meeting didn't go well. You said something that maybe you shouldn't have said. When you said it out of your mouth, it was temporary, it had a start time and an end time. It's
Mm.
also localized. You said it in meeting one. Do me a favor, don't say it again in meeting 2, 3, and 4 that you have the rest of the day. Keep it localized to there. But the best part about mistakes is that it's changeable. Attach
Hmm.
some
mhm,
action to it. And, my dad used to say, when you know better, do better. Attach some action to it. And now let's do different. Um,
yeah,
yeah. So I think
No.
that's how you
No,
handle
that's.
mistakes.
I want to circle back to you mentioned coaches, leaders,
Hmm.
creating a culture. How do you create a culture of competitiveness without it going negative like
Yeah.
it sometimes can?
Yeah. So I think it's a good thing to have ambition, but you have to make sure that as a leader, you're not having people with obsession, right? And so, again, going back to kind of what I said earlier, for leaders, you have to set up a system where you're rewarding people no matter outcome. If you believe that they're giving you maximum effort, that's all you need. If people are showing up late to work, late, not participating in meetings and stuff, then they probably don't need to work there anymore. Okay. But if
Yeah.
they are showing up, trying, willing, with maximum effort, then I always just say, like, give me your effort. I can turn it into talent. I don't need
Hmm.
when I was coaching, I don't need the most talented players. I need the players that are going to give me the most effort because I might have some onus in this too.
Yeah.
That's why I'm the head coach. So you bring me your effort and let's shape and turn it into talent. Along the way that you know that this is a safe space for you is that I am rewarding effort over. So what leaders need to do is recognition. We know people love to be recognized, but let's not recognize just the people who, got the project over the finish line or who had the most drug sales or whatever it may be. Recognize the people that helped that person get there. Call them out,
Mhm.
shout them out. So
Mm,
recognition is one, and recognizing and celebrating the effort, not
hmm.
just the success. I
Right.
think
Yeah.
when leaders do that, it changes people because now I'm not so scared to try because hey, I might get a shout out just for my little bit of effort. And here's the thing,
Right.
all those little things add up to the big thing. There's not one team that
Yeah.
ever just signed up for the Super Bowl. I'll
Yeah.
wait. Who?
Yeah.
Who? They didn't. There were little wins, micro wins along the way that got them to that game. And some of it starts in the training room, some starts in training camp, all the way to the W's they collect every Sunday, Monday, or now Thursday, you have to say,
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
along the way.
You know what's interesting is like in sports, you'd like to think that everybody on said team is competitive.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's going to be a certain, kind of a variety on the spectrum of like competitiveness that exists
Hmm.
on a team. Not everybody, there's people that they play the sport but they don't love it,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's something that's always a red flag
Yep.
when like in the NFL combine, like they do these interviews to figure out do they really love football
Right.
or do they just like or is this just a vehicle for something else
Yep.
or whatever it might be? And that's a thing,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
But at least in sports, in general, especially the higher level you go, there's at least everybody's coming in there with this
Sure.
aspiration to be competitive,
Sure.
right? But in business, that's not always the
Right.
case. Now in sales, you might in generally, again, like in sports, have a kind of a team of people that have this variety
Hmm.
of on the spectrum
Hmm.
of competitiveness. Everybody's aspiring to be competitive. But what's really important in business oftentimes is to work like cross-functionally,
Right.
right?
Right.
Sales work with marketing, et cetera, et cetera and based on kind of where people are at in the business, where they're siloed in the business, or where their skill set lies. Sales might be working with marketing.
Right.
Maybe the folks in marketing they're talented, they're creative, do all these different. They support the sales team, etc. But not everybody on that team has this competitive strand
Right.
that lives within them,
Right.
right? In fact, they even combat like they. And in fact, they even kind of give you a vibe like, "Oh, you're
Yeah.
competitive, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha."
Gross.
And so
Ew.
sometimes like people that are competitive, like I don't do a great job like relating to people that aren't
Hmm.
competitive. You know what I mean?
Right. I hear you.
And so how can one who is competitive like work well and build really good productive relationships with people that maybe just that's not them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, how do you kind of build that relationship and kind of meet in the middle somewhere, or should you be meeting in the middle?
Yeah, I think
You
you
know what I mean?
should be meeting in the middle, especially if they are helping you get the W that you need, right? So like
Hmm.
this is funny because I did a thing with San Francisco 49ers that sales team. And the guy there wanted to put in the marketing people. And you could tell he didn't tell me he was like, I'll give you who my sales guys are. I said, no need. You don't need to tell me. I'll be able to tell as soon as they walk in, right? Not only from what they have
Yeah.
on to whatever the marketing people came in, they're casual, they got their coffee, they don't really, we're playing a game and they're like, yeah, I guess, sure. They don't really care about winning. It's just a different
Mhm.
vibe, a different walk and everything. But I told him, he was like, well, do you think they need to be in there? I'm like, yeah, put them in there because one, I'm gonna help them understand what the sales team is going through. And the sales team needs to understand what they're going through. And
Yeah.
because the group goal here, the group narrative goal is to sell more tickets to San Francisco 49ers games. Point blank, period. Everyone's paycheck is tied to that. So everyone needs to do well. Now, marketing isn't as tied to it, but if they get a vibe of how the salespeople are thinking, acting, vibing, then that should show up in the collateral, should show up in the marketing materials. Then if that does that, it helps the salespeople tell their story better. So I always say this: relationship, relationship, relationship. Real estate agents say location, location, location. I am
Right.
big on relationship. So you need
Mhm.
to focus on how am I building this relationship with this person? They may have nothing to do with your day-to-day job, but they help you, they assist you, they provide something that you need in order to do your job better. So people will work harder, longer, stronger, faster with you and for you when they know you care about them. So I'm rocking with the people in marketing because I know my stuff is going to get done faster. It's going to be
Yeah.
better. It's going to be understood and it's going to help me do my job better.
Yeah.
So I think being intentional about building relationships is one of the most important things that you can do to help cross-functional teams. Like one of the most
Yeah.
important. Build that relationship, know that person.
And it doesn't it feel good too when you're doing
Yeah,
it along with somebody else? Like they say,
absolutely.
if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think it feels so much more rewarding and gratifying when you're doing it as a team. And it's I mean it's as a leader, constantly trying to figure out how do you balance that competitiveness and keeping your team competitive, right? But having it so it doesn't turn negative, that they're doing it collectively. So I think
Yeah.
that's really good points that you made there. Is
Empathy and
there?
drive, DJ. Empathy and
Yeah.
drive, right? That's what leaders should be focusing on. How do I have empathy for my people? And what we got so mixed up first, drive, drive, drive. Leaders think, let me drive people. I got to be this, and they'll get there and push them. If you have the empathy, the drive actually comes, right? That's why,
Mhm.
and hopefully that's the new class we're gonna be rolling out at Limitless is empathy and
Okay.
drive, right? But that it's about both
Yeah, that's
simultaneously.
right.
And
That's
if
right.
you do, and I found that if you concentrate on your people, right, then the work will take care of itself. The work will take care
Yeah.
of itself. And I want to say one other thing about team, just shout out to you in Harry, because listen, I've been doing this thing right out here in these streets for a minute, having success, but there is nothing like what you said, doing it together.
Yeah.
When we found each other, it was a major internal shift for me because I've got people now as a team I can lean on, grow with, that understand this mentality, that sometimes can pick me up, remind me to go nooch, right? We've got a group chat, and I can't tell you how many times in that go nooch, right? We share that stuff with each other, and immediately it can pull you back right where you need to be to get back on track and go forward for greatness. So teamwork, dream work, that sounds silly and all the things, but
It's real.
it is certainly true. Certainly true.
Yeah, it's very real. Is there somebody that you've either worked with, competed against, and been around, or even seen just out there in the world that just exemplifies competitiveness? Like they are the gold standard for competitiveness. Anybody that comes to mind?
Hmm. The gold standard. Well, you know what? I'll take one of my childhood heroes, Magic Johnson. I
Okay.
think Magic Johnson was someone that I wanted to emulate because I think he was super competitive. He was a great basketball player, but he did it with a smile, right? He helped other people. And now when you look at him, that same mentality has transferred into his business. He's one of
Hmm.
the most, him and Shaq, one of the most successful players that have businesses. And it's for that same skill set, right? He's a likable guy. He thinks about other people. He started his businesses in marginalized communities, bringing entertainment and jobs to those communities. When he started Magic Johnson movie theaters, they were always in areas that did not have something
That's right.
like that.
That's
And
right.
so I think in terms of competitiveness, I he emulates a person that I would like to say, let's go to that next level, right? Let's
Hmm.
keep pushing. What else can we do? What else can we do? And it goes back to what I said earlier. What am I doing? Who's benefiting? And why am I doing it? Why am I
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
this? Am I doing it to
Yeah.
be rich? And I have to think that there's some people that start businesses, and especially athletes that have disposable income, that start them because they can. Why not? And they know that they won't be able to play at some point.
Yeah.
Magic's to
Hmm.
me felt more intentional about what can I do? Well, I need to start a business. That's the thing I should be doing next. I can't play forever. But
Right.
who's it going to serve?
That's
Why
right.
am I
Hmm.
doing it? And
Hmm.
so I like Magic's
I love.
his vibe.
I grew up loving Magic
Yeah.
Johnson, and one of the things that was different about, he was my favorite player growing up. Ironically, is that it was always about, you know what you had to do and the effort you had to put in to win.
Yes.
Like
Yep.
it was never about stats.
Nope.
It was just about, like, how do we as a team get another ring? I think it was five, right? I think it was five
Yeah.
ultimately that he had,
Yep.
and
Yep. That he
and
had. Yeah. The
that
Lakers
he had.
7, if they were the Minneapolis Lakers and whatever. But
That,
yes.
that's right. That's right. But and being able to do it with all different types of teammates and collectively get, to that championship and win five times is incredible.
Yeah. He's
But
also one of the people that is known for passing, right? So if we think about what that
that's
means,
that's so true.
like, we think about what that means in an era where a lot of times and during that time was scoring, 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 points, points, let me shoot, let me shoot. He could shoot, but one of the things that you remember Magic for was like no look passes
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all that, which that in and of itself says, I believe in you. as my teammate. I'm going to give you the rock because I believe that you can do what we need to do in
Yep.
this moment. I don't need the points. What I need is a W, but we're going for this group narrative goal. And so even that part of his
Mm-hmm.
style of play, the assist, says a lot about who he is and
So
Yeah.
about
true.
being competitive.
So true.
I think that, like as we close, I want to start talking about some actionables for
Yeah.
folks to take
Yeah.
away or continue to talk about actionables for people to take
Yeah,
away.
sure.
But before I do, one thing on magic, because this is the
Yeah,
magic.
you
This is
got
the magic
this is the
podcast.
magic podcast.
Magic. If you're listening, Magic.
Yeah, come on, Magic. I want some tickets to the World Series, Dodgers. No, but the other piece is, and we think about the you kind of talked about his evolution in the
Mhm.
business, right? From sports to business, his ability to reinvent himself
Mhm.
or
Right.
willingness to
Right.
reinvent himself, is a part, I think, of like a broader scope of competitiveness, right? Whether it be in the micro
Yep.
scenarios,
Yep.
daily, weekly, kind of like the grind, and being able to kind of adapt and reinvent strategies
Yep.
and have be solution oriented. Because when we're going to talk about some of these actionables, we're probably going to layer in neutral thinking
Mhm.
and the ability to be kind of solution based and like kind of reinvent yourself based on the truth, right? But I think that Magic's done just a fantastic job. He's one of those guys, Shaq, you said, just being able to reinvent themselves and bring that competitiveness to another arena is like one of those like gold standards, right?
Yeah.
And so, and as I think, do we all agree that competitiveness is a muscle, not just like a born trait?
Heck yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Heck yeah.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
gotta work it.
yes,
So
we got to work on it.
so yeah, so with that being a muscle can be trained,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
It can be strengthened, and without training, it will atrophy, right? Let's talk about some tools and some resources, some ways that people can train this muscle.
Yeah.
Ways people that can train it, flex it, and then when it does atrophy, based on that on the environment or things going not the way you want it, how do you kind of strengthen it again? Let's talk a little bit about that. What do you guys see as far as like ways that people can work on this as part of their daily work, part of their weekly kind of habits?
You just said it. Habits, right? Habits are like your highlight reel, right? Like what you're doing every single day leads to your actions. And so I think in order to help people stay and maintain good competitiveness, right? They need systems in place, like systems
Mhm.
of success. What are you doing that builds those small W's? I think DJ's talked about making the bed,
Mhm.
in the morning, right? Just whatever that is, praying before, whatever those routines and habits, that's how you start. I get a couple W's real quick because I set a standard in the morning. Every single morning I wake up and say I want to do 1% better than yesterday. And then I look at what that could look like because I review yesterday, look within and say what could I have done just a little bit better in those areas of yesterday, in that meeting, in that conversation, at dinner with my family, whatever it is, how could I have done 1% better? And then I try to take that vibe into that day. And so I think what people can do is make sure they have systems of success, routines, um, consistency over everything,
Yeah.
If you just keep doing it, you simply get better just by getting the reps. Very few people got on a bike for the
It's
first
boring.
time.
It's
Right. It
boring,
is.
right?
It is boring.
It's
Yep.
right.
Oh
It's
well.
boring. It's monotonous.
That's the
It's
difference between ballers and bums, right? Okay,
yeah,
just keeping it
that's
real
right.
is
Yeah.
whether you show up. Everybody got a gym membership, but are you going? Like, do you go or you just drive by it? So the uncomfortable part is where we get better. That's the difference between talking
Mm,
about it and being about it, right? The
yeah.
comfort is all the people that talk about, oh, I'm competitive. Oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm getting ready to do this. I used to do this. Okay, thank you for the story. Right.
Yeah.
The living it is, nah, I'm on my way right now. I just did this. I'm going to continue to do it. I also think people need a bison buddy. And we talk about this all the time. Get you someone that is going to run through a storm with you. And when things
Mhm.
go bad, you've got somebody's ear, somebody's
Yeah.
shoulder, somebody's hand, right? These are things that you can do to keep that competitive edge in vibe. Systems
Yeah.
of success, take feedback, know your routines, bison buddy, and over everything, just be consistent and the growth will come.
Monica, you mentioned the word comfort.
Mm.
Obviously the opposite of that being, being
Right.
uncomfortable. I think that's a big key to like, if I'm trying to flex this muscle, if I'm trying to build a muscle, right? The muscle I'm really trying to build to be more competitiveness is adversity tolerance,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Ooh, talk
In
about
order
it.
to build adversity tolerance, you have to go through, you have to be able to start working on
Yep.
enduring,
Yep.
being that endurance of adversity. And so, and then the way to do that is to have more adversity like to be able to seek out
Yep.
adversity, be a heat seeker,
Yep.
right? So in other words, do hard stuff,
Yep.
do hard things, right? You know what I mean? And sometimes they're really big, hard things, like, overwhelming, like audacious
Yeah.
stuff. But like the little micro things, whether it be like, hey, the stuff I have on my to-do list, the stuff that like I really don't want to do, or that are just, man, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. Do that first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Eat the beetle,
You know
right?
what I mean?
Isn't that what they call it? Eat the
Right.
beetle, or
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. And the same thing with our kids. Like, I think, many of us, like some of us, like are trying to figure out, like, how do I build this adversity tolerance for my kids? Because we were talking about this morning, DJ, like our kids, like, hey, get your own glass of water. Like, you're 13 years old. You know what I mean? Right. Like stop leaving your soccer bag or whatever it is on the ground. Like,
Right.
we keep telling you, put it in your locker. Right. We spent a bunch of money to build to renovate the little area and do right. So having them do like what, quote unquote, hard stuff. That stuff's not hard,
Right.
right? But things that they're not used to doing, things that are uncomfortable that their parents have typically done for them. They need to start doing that stuff,
So
right?
true.
But I think all of us have these hard things that we perceive as hard things, usually because we haven't been willing to kind of break,
Right.
kind of go through the glass ceiling on what's uncomfortable, right? And so I think that like my little submission into this, like the tools and like strategies is to do hard things,
Yes.
right? Do hard things, especially the low hanging fruit stuff that that isn't a marathon run, right?
That's
That's a
right.
sprint. Like some of these hard things that are sprints, like do those daily, and get used to getting uncomfortable, because those things that are uncomfortable will become things that you can do in your sleep.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Comfort,
And
comfort is the enemy of progress. When
Say
things
it.
are predictable, your brain is conserving energy. It's going into like efficiency mode.
Yep.
But like when you face new challenges, you work that prefrontal cortex, and then all of a sudden things light
that's
up.
a big word,
You say,
DJ.
hey, listen, prefrontal. That's it. It's right
Okay.
there, man. Right there.
Okay.
I got a big
Prefrontal.
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 But that's
Dropping
where
science.
that's where the focus and the creativity and the problem solving, that's where that all comes into play. And so it's like what you're saying is rooted in facts, data, science, Harry. When you look at neuroplasticity and yeah, so it's right there. And the other thing is that those small wins, when you're getting those small wins and doing things like that's also hitting off that dopamine, and so you're getting those small hits of dopamine with those small wins, which then will help you track obviously to your goals over time. But it's, how do you get uncomfortable, more often, and put yourself in a position to be challenged. And when we talk about this a lot, Monica, we were raising these kids
Yeah.
in suburban America
Yeah.
where it's pretty comfortable.
Oh yeah.
You know what I
Real
mean? It's like
comfortable.
it's real comfortable.
Yeah.
Like Harry said, like, put your bag in your locker, right? Like you got
Right.
lockers at the house, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's
Your
not, it's
bag
that.
in your locker at your house.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so how do we create these moments of discomfort for them and challenge and ourselves too, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's there's
Yeah.
ton of
Yeah.
science
I
behind it.
mean, Monica, like wrap us up.
Yeah.
And we summarize some tools and resources and ways of things to think about. Like, wrap this up for the audience on, like, the 1 to 3,
Yeah.
things that you want them to take away and to, like, today, tomorrow, next week, to be kind of implementing
Yes.
into their
So
everyday.
I think the thing is that competitiveness really is commitment plus curiosity, right? Make a commitment to yourself that you are going make promises to yourself, hold yourself accountable. And then the curiosity part is, when I get in this space, I'm curious to see how far I can take this. How far can I
hmm
push myself? And then be ready to reward yourself as well. Like DJ just finished talking. It builds and it broadens. So when you have that first difficult conversation, to your point, Harry, the sixth difficult conversation you could do in your sleep. But you have to have the willingness to just jump out there first and say, you know what? I'm gonna give this a shot. And when I fail, I'm gonna pick myself back up, because I remember that mistakes are temporary, localized, and changeable, and I'm gonna keep
Mm.
at it. Competitiveness is commitment plus curiosity, and it has nothing to
Love it.
do with anybody else. It's you in the mirror,
Love it.
baby. You in the mirror all day.
I love it. I love it, man. I love it. I love it. And so commitment and curiosity,
Yeah.
that's the formula, man. So listen, love this conversation on competitiveness. Thank you for, enlightening us a little bit,
Hey,
a little dialogue, a little
Yeah.
discussion on this topic. And, I
Bring an
think that
expert
it's,
on, man. Bring an expert on. You get some gold
whatever.
nuggets.
Yeah, I didn't even know people
yeah,
were listening. We just in here, the three of us talking. That's all.
Love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Love it.
My
My mom.
mom's
Hey,
probably
listen.
listening.
Yeah, I was gonna say my mom and Harry's mom always listen. And
Well,
if
my
we
mom
not,
gonna
and we,
listen to this
it,
episode.
they,
I'm just gonna keep it real. She ain't been listening to y'all or Josh or Joe, but she
Definitely
gonna
listen
listen to
to
this one.
there you
Yeah,
go.
good,
There you
good,
go. Let's
good.
go.
So
Well, listen,
this all
listen.
moms, please listen. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we're grateful for you, Monica. Grateful to have you on our squad. And before we go, where can just remind people where they can find you if they want to hear more of you, see more of you.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're on all the platforms.
Yeah,
Like where
that's not
people can
really
find
my
you.
thing, but you can find me on limitlessminds.com, I think, and you can find me on
Hmm.
monicadlivingston.com. I'm Livingston3636 on Instagram. I
Hmm.
think it's just my name on Facebook, but LinkedIn, look me up on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
Monica D.
Yeah.
Livingston. And y'all can
Mm,
call
Love
me
it.
too. I mean, I'm highly responsive via text
just
message, 703
Google her. You
898
will see the highlights if you Google. You
Google
know
me,
what I'm saying?
baby.
Google her.
Yeah. Love it. All right, y'all. Well, thank you. That's another episode of Limitless Minds Podcast. And remember, you don't have to be sick to get better.